Thanks for joining us on this latest episode of the True Claims Podcast. You know, one of the reasons I love doing this show is I learned so much about the legal process and how it works, and also about what goes into a successful personal injury claim. If you're like me and you're curious about some of those things, you can leave a comment down below and we might put it into our next show. For instance, if you have a question about obscure road laws or dirty tricks by the insurance industry or personal injury situations you want to discuss, leave them in the comments below. You might be a part of our next show. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Johnson, and welcome to the latest episode of the True Claims Podcast. Fascinating case to talk with you about today. In July of 2024, a man named Tyler in his 30s was driving a Lime scooter in Capitol Hill. Now imagine this, picture it if you will, a line of parked cars. He's coming along in his Lime scooter. Someone in a car opens up the door and Tyler crashes into that door. There were serious injuries. Interestingly, the person that had opened the door helped him out at first. In fact, drove him to the hospital. But once dropping him off at the hospital, didn't leave his full name, didn't leave any contact information, didn't leave any insurance information. So Tyler was left with nothing except a $100,000 medical bill. And that's where we bring in Chris Davis of the Davis Law Group. Chris, these Lime bikes, we're all familiar with them. First of all, a little bit about those things. How dangerous are they?
Well, they can be very, very dangerous. As you've driven a car, I've driven a car, and we've seen the people on Lime scooters darting in and out of traffic. I think we've got a handful of those cases already. It seems like we get a handful every year. Those cases keep accelerating, but yes, very dangerous. Is there one set of injuries, and for instance, are head injuries more prevalent with the scooters than anything else, or is there one injury that seems to happen more often? Well, we haven't seen a head injury yet. It's usually broken bones, a broken arm or wrist are the most common.
What options does a rider have in an accident like this one? I mean, here's a guy on the ground. This fella says he's going to take him to the hospital, but there's things he needed to do that maybe he didn't do.
Yeah, he was obligated to give his insurance information, his full name and address, so that Tyler was able to follow up with them, and he didn't do that. However, he did something that's also unusual. He drives him to the hospital, right, but doesn't leave his name, full name, and Tyler had no way of getting back in touch with him. So
what if Tyler had, say, auto insurance? Would that help? Could he use that?
Potentially, but more and more policies are excluding coverage for injuries that happen on a motorbike or some motorized vehicle like a scooter.
As I mentioned, you can just picture this happening, right? We've all been in that situation. You look in the rear view mirror, the mirror on the side, you see somebody coming along on a bicycle or a Lime bike. It's called dooring, I guess, they tell me, when you fling open the door and somebody hits it. Is that fairly prevalent? Does that happen a lot?
It does. In fact, there's a specific law that applies that holds drivers of vehicles responsible if they open up their door and a cyclist or a scooter or somebody comes along and hits the door. So it is quite common.
I want to ask you about helmets. Didn't we used to have helmet laws? Are they no longer in effect?
Yeah, they don't apply necessarily to scooters, although it's a very good idea given the risk of injury to them, but there's no requirement for a helmet.
And do you recall if Tyler was wearing a helmet?
No. As with most people that use the scooters, they are not wearing helmets.
Interesting. Tyler's injuries, how bad were they? What was his situation after getting hit?
Well, he shattered his arm and elbow, lots of bruises, I think some internal injuries, and as you mentioned earlier, the medical bills exceeded $100,000, so the injuries were quite serious.
So then here's this guy. There's no information to go on here. How do you, after he came to you, how do you go about trying to figure out who this person was that dropped him off?
Yeah, and that was a huge obstacle. In fact, we told Tyler, we may not have a case here, right? So what we ended up doing is Tyler knew his first name, and with that, we went to social media, Facebook, Instagram, and thankfully was able to track him down and find out exactly who he was from a Facebook profile.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's
So with only a first name,
with only a first name.
no
right.
pictures, no videos.
I think we asked him for the description of the vehicle. And I think the vehicle was also included. There was a picture or two on the Facebook profile, but it was mostly the name and then showing Tyler that person's face, and he recognized it, and it turned out to be the actual person.
Unbelievable. So now you go to this driver. What was that like?
Well, so one of the things what we do is we get the full name and the address, looking up public records, and then we'll send a letter out reminding them that they were in the incident with our client, and then asking them for his insurance information. Half the time people ignore the letters, but in this particular case, the driver responded and actually gave us his insurance information.
Now, what was his reaction like? I mean, he obviously had some amount of decency. He took the guy to the hospital. Yeah. Is that very common, by the way?
No. I don't think the guy was trying to get out of anything, or else he wouldn't have dropped him off at the hospital. And the fact that he returned the letter with his insurance coverage is a little unusual. So I think the guy was doing a good deed and promptly responded with his insurance information. So obviously Tyler was pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what his reaction was, because he probably was thinking nothing's going to happen with this.
Yeah, I mean, we presented it as almost like a needle in the haystack, right? And so when we came to him with the information that we found the actual driver, he was pretty ecstatic, for sure.
So let's talk then about the litigation and how you proceeded forward with that to get some recovery for Tyler.
Yeah, so we proceeded with a lawsuit, and the driver's insurance company was Chubb Insurance. And we've had a lot of experience with Chubb, mostly positive, but we were able to negotiate a settlement worth, I think, over $350,000 for him. So,
along the way, was there any pushback that maybe it was Tyler's fault, that he wasn't wearing a helmet and he wasn't where he should have been, and he should have been more on the lookout?
Yeah. So with Lime scooter cases, including bicycle cases, we always get the argument from the insurance company that our client shared some of the fault. And so we were able to piece together what exactly happened. We showed Chubb the law that prevents drivers from opening their doors without checking for cyclists or other pedestrians, or scooters in this case. And once we were able to do that, then they kind of stepped back and admitted that their insured was 100% at fault.
So that's interesting to me. There is a law in the books that if you're going to open your door, you need to look and see if anyone's coming.
The driver has the primary duty to make sure that nobody's coming down the street and may hit the door. Yes.
And you said $350,000?
Yes.
Okay, so this worked out as well as possible for Tyler.
Yeah, and listen, it doesn't happen a lot of times when somebody comes to us and they don't have the name or the address of the person that caused the accident. It's a huge obstacle. So in Tyler's case, we were able to come through for him, but it doesn't happen always.
Well, this is such an interesting case to me because, as you mentioned, we've all seen this. We've seen these scooters. It's one more thing that we have to pay attention to. Pedestrians, stoplights and signals and stop signs and the such, other automobiles, and now these scooters that are flying around, right?
Yeah, and as I said before, we are receiving an uptick in these types of cases with scooter drivers in particular. I think every year, it seems like we have more than double the previous year of accidents where somebody driving a scooter either hits a car or the car hits the scooter.
So I've been doing this podcast with you for a year now. I was recently in a fender bender. There was so much adrenaline, and I forgot to get this guy's driver's license number. Like I forgot to get some of the information that I should have received in that situation. So I'm sure you can understand how people in these situations forget to ask those important questions.
Yeah, and it's very common because your adrenaline is going. You're not concerned about writing information down. So that's one of the reasons why we developed a glove box accident kit that we give out for free. With our books that we send out also to a lot of the public, but it goes through the information that you should take down, names of witnesses, the other vehicle's information, the damage to the vehicle. So just keeping this in the glove box can be very helpful.
Yeah, that's huge, important information, isn't it?
Especially if there are injuries involved, the police should always be called, because when the police respond, they take a full detailed report, the information from the other driver. But it is fairly common for clients that come to us and they didn't get all of the information that would have made it easier to find the other driver, for sure.
Well, let me ask you this. Why did you take this case at all? There's no picture, there's no video, there's no name, no insurance information. This seems like one where you certainly could have said, sorry, this isn't going to work out for us.
Yeah. It's a great question. I think it really comes down to who the person is, how strongly we believe in that person's case, and what we may be able to do as far as successfully helping that person out. So with Tyler, we told him up front that the odds are probably against him, given the limited information that we had on the other driver. But a lot of times we're able to come through with our private investigator and the resources that we have. Social media is a big part of that. So we felt strongly about the case and we wanted to help him out. That's really what it came down to. Unfortunately, we were in this case.
And it really worked out well. Hey, we want to remind all of you out there that if you have any questions about personal injury situations, the laws, the way they work, the way claims work, you can write them in the comments below this podcast. And we're now going to be fielding some questions and might take those at a later episode. So he's Chris Davis. I'm Eric Johnson. This is the latest episode of the True Claims Podcast. We'll see you next time. Eric Johnson here. I spent the last 30 years reporting on what you need to know, and now I've got something I think everyone could use. The Washington Accident Book Series offers a free legal guidebook on everything from car crashes to dog bites, so that you know what to expect after any kind of accident. Know your rights and how to avoid common mistakes after an accident by getting your free copy at WashingtonAccidentBooks.com.